you. Continuing, in addition to my role here, the committee that I serve on as an authorizer oversees capital security as well as federal elections, so I'm closely following the aftermath of January 6th. Recently, several defendants who received presidential pardons related to that day are now arguing in court that the pardon covers crimes like, for instance, illegal firearm possession discovered in a search of an individual's home in California months after January 6th. What's your position on whether the pardons cover these separate offenses?
The pardon power rests with the president, not the Department of Justice, and some of that is pending litigation, and I cannot discuss pending litigation.
Well, I'm not asking you about who has the right to a pardon. I think as the Department of Justice in February wrote, the pardon is an act of grace which removes the punishment from a crime a person has committed. It further said, in its effect, the granting of a pardon is in no sense the overturning of a judgment of conviction. It is an executive action that mitigates or sets aside punishment. So as the chief law enforcement officer, what's your opinion? Not the president's power of whether he can offer a pardon. That's pretty clear in the Constitution. But for crimes committed unrelated to January 6th, would you suggest that the pardons would cover activities or crimes potentially committed outside of that by the same person?
Well, I don't know if you're referring to Joe Biden pardoning his son after he said he would not pardon Hunter Biden, or the
No, I actually
commutation
referred
of
to January 6th. I'm sorry.
all the sentences that the people that were on death row. I've met with those families.
No,
and all of those sentences were commuted. I'm not going to comment on pardons on either side of the aisle.
So, well, I'm not asking about either side. I'm asking, you're the chief law enforcement officer in the United States. You have a responsibility directly, but you sworn oath to the Constitution, not the president. Want to know what your views are on the extent to which pardons cover potential crimes committed by individuals who have been pardoned but unrelated to January 6th.
Do you mean the ones that were done by the auto pen? I'm not going to discuss
right.
anything that
Mr.
could
Chairman,
be or not be
I
pending litigation.
respectfully, Ms. DeLauro accused you of filibustering. I think that's the height of filibustering. This is a serious topic, and for you to suggest that you don't have an opinion or to divert to other things that had nothing to do with January 6 pardons, I think is frankly demeaning to your responsibilities and your job. Madam Attorney General, I serve in addition to the Appropriations Committee as a ranking member of the Committee on House Administration. I sent you a letter last week along with my Republican counterpart, Chairman Brian Stile, requesting an increase in federal prosecutory resources to address threats against members of Congress, particularly in light of what happened last week in Minnesota, that tragedy. In 2024, the U.S. Capitol Police identified and received nearly 9,500 concerning statements or threats against members. Federal prosecutors have only secured 8 convictions so far, and the heightened threat environment demands an all-hands-on-deck approach. Will you commit to assigning an assistant U.S. attorney or a special assistant U.S. attorney in each of the 94 federal districts to, at least on a part-time basis, investigate and prosecute threats against members of Congress?
So thank you for bringing that up, and I take that very seriously. Not only what happened in Minnesota was horrible. I've spoken to Keith Ellison. I've spoken to Amy Klobuchar about that. It's horrible. We are involved in that. The FBI was involved. Our U.S. attorneys are involved. Many of these are district to district. So the way we're doing that is, I will tell you, my National Security Division is involved in all of those and assisting in those. We meet every single morning and we discuss that. But many of those, Minnesota, will be handled in the state in which it happened. Another one is Governor. I'm sorry if I can keep going. I'm sorry. I don't mean
Quickly,
to.
though.
I filibuster. Governor Shapiro and what happened in Pennsylvania with Governor Shapiro. I've spoken to Governor Shapiro. We are working hand in hand, our U.S. attorney with the district attorney there, hand in hand, just like in Minnesota. I made sure our U.S. attorney and our district attorneys there were working hand in hand. Political party doesn't matter when something like this happens. And I also want to make sure all members of Congress are safe as well.
Okay, and I would reiterate, Chairman Stile and I think Chairman Stile and I agree that at least a part-time in each of the 94 districts would be appropriate. Let me change topics for just a moment.
I'm really quick on that. Yes, we're doing that through our National Security Division, so I think that's already in the works, and I would be glad to meet with you in a secure facility to talk about that.
Very good. Thank you.
Today's hearing highlights a critical moment in our ongoing fight to uphold the Constitution and protect our democracy. Representative Joe Morell made it clear that the threats against members of Congress are not abstract. They are real, pervasive, and dangerous. In 2024 alone, nearly 9,500 threats were identified by the U.S. Capitol Police, yet only 8 convictions were secured. This stark disparity underscores the urgent need for robust prosecutorial resources. What Representative Joe Morell is asking for, an assistant U.S. attorney or special assistant U.S. attorney in every federal district, is not just reasonable, it's necessary. Democracy cannot survive if those elected to serve are left vulnerable to intimidation without swift legal recourse. Attorney General Bondi's responses, while acknowledging the issue, reflected a concerning lack of specificity about how these threats will be systematically addressed. The follow-through on promises matters. We're talking about safeguarding elected officials, their families, and ultimately the functioning of our government. Democrats have long stressed that public safety and accountability cannot be partisan issues. Protecting members of Congress from targeted threats is about the integrity of our institutions. The discussion then pivoted to a topic that goes straight to the heart of the January 6 investigations: presidential pardons for individuals involved in the Capitol insurrection. Here, the hearing exposed a fundamental tension between the constitutional authority of the president and the responsibilities of the Department of Justice. Some defendants have attempted to argue that their pardons extend to unrelated crimes, such as illegal firearm possession months after January 6th. The legal question is significant. Does a pardon mitigate punishment only for the crime it explicitly covers, or can it be stretched to cover separate, later criminal acts? Attorney General Bondi repeatedly declined to provide a direct answer, citing pending litigation and the constitutional powers of the president. However, from a democratic standpoint, this reluctance highlights a dangerous precedent. The Justice Department is sworn to uphold the law and the Constitution first, not shield partisan interests. Ignoring or sidestepping the implications of pardons related to January 6th undermines public confidence in justice and accountability. Democracy demands transparency, not evasions. It is important to emphasize what the Department of Justice itself stated in February. A pardon is an act of grace that removes the punishment for a specific crime. It does not overturn the conviction itself. This distinction matters because any attempt to extend pardons beyond their legal scope risks enabling lawlessness. Democrats have consistently argued that those who participated in the attack on the Capitol must be held accountable, not protected under broad or ambiguous interpretations of executive power. Upholding this principle safeguards not just the law, but the very foundation of representative government. The exchange also underscored the critical responsibility of top law enforcement officials to provide clarity. When the Attorney General refuses to opine on the limits of presidential pardons, it raises real concerns about whether the DOJ is prioritizing the Constitution over political considerations. For the public watching, this is a teachable moment. The rule of law depends on officials who are willing to uphold it, even when inconvenient or politically sensitive. The January 6 aftermath is a test of our democracy, and Democrats are pushing for accountability at every level, both to protect elected officials and to prevent future attacks on our institutions. Ultimately, the hearing illuminates the need for a dual focus: immediate safety measures for members of Congress and broader, structural accountability for those who seek to subvert the law. The message from Democratic lawmakers is clear. Threats cannot be ignored, the law cannot be bent for political convenience, and presidential pardons must not become tools to evade justice. This is about defending democracy, protecting public servants, and ensuring that the events of January 6th are neither minimized nor repeated. As citizens, it's critical to stay informed, demand accountability, and support elected officials who insist on transparency. When public safety and constitutional obligations intersect, there is no room for half measures or partisan silence. This hearing is a reminder that democracy is preserved not by rhetoric, but by action, by enforcing the law, safeguarding our institutions, and holding everyone accountable under the same rules.